Hey guys, Tommy G, Middle-Aged Millennial. Take 2 on the Close to My Heart episode. And this time, we'll have Dr. Rouse. Dr. Rouse in the house. So it would help if I put these on too, right? So I don't know if you can hear me there, but yeah, so I've got my cue screen there just to make sure we're doing okay. So yeah, we hopefully you had yourself a nice little coffee in the intermission break for about 30 minutes as we got the daylight savings differences sort of between Brisbane and Queenstown, I think, in New Zealand, where Dr. Rouse has his house. And we were talking about CVD, or cardiovascular disease, and basically my story, my experience with having experienced that, and reversing the negative effects that cause it. So, having learned a lot about industry, the pharma industry, and medical in general, pills and procedures versus actually nutrition, and following Dr. Well, was he then? I think he was called a physiologist back then, as a matter of fact. Hippocrates, one of my Greek historical forefathers. Anyway, God, how many ums am I pumping out today? Sort of my brain is blocking all over the place. But anyway, we've got Dr. House in the Rouse. So we're going to bring Peter on. Where are we? Just waiting. Okay, I'm going to allow him to be able to... There we go. While we work through the FB technology. They keep making changes on it, right? So, okay, let's bring him on and approve. There we're adding Peter Rouse, Dr. Rouse, PhD in physiology and masters in biochemistry and genetics.
Hey, we made it.
We made it, yeah. God, I knew it.
I got my coffee, so I'm ready.
You got your coffee, all right, fantastic. I said that I bet you anything, it's like a daylight savings thing, because Peter, I can set my clock to. So, yeah, my screw up. But anyway, opportunity for me to blab for a while, because I'm so bad at doing that, with my experience regarding CVD. And, wow, number one killer on the planet, unless things have changed overnight, Pete. And, with cancer sort of coming up behind, certainly in the US, I think it's 1 in 3 people will have a heart attack sometime in their life at the moment in the US. And it's not a dice worth throwing, because you don't know when it's going to hit you. So, yeah, mate, I'm sort of teeing this up. Your experience around CVD would be interesting to hear. And you as a, PhD physiologist and biochemist, masters of, and genetics, be good to get your spin from where you're coming from, friends, etc. I had one guy in the industry, in IT industry, in his 40s, absolute rock star, that died like 2 months ago in the lift, coming out of the gym. Here, Dean Mercer, triathlete, world champion last year. Currawong Surf Club was his club, and after a training session, gone. And these are people you don't kind of, well, maybe the exec, but certainly not sports people. Jim Fix, the great marathon runner, I think, died in his 50s, perhaps because of a genetic predisposition.
Funny, yeah, that's what we're going to discuss today a little bit. But funny enough, the extreme endurance athletes are actually more prone to damage to the heart anyway.
Right, yeah.
What they've found in some of the research is that extreme endurance actually causes the heart to shrink.
Oh, I thought it grew.
No.
Interesting.
Through efficiency.
Wow. So what actually happens?
Because it
becomes more efficient?
Kind of, yeah. So basically the efficiency, it kind of causes a shrink. Don't know if that's linked to the increased, heart risk factors for them per se, but that's kind of an interesting side effect. Right. And we're talking extreme. We're talking marathon every weekend type. We're talking pretty extreme endurance athletes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I doubt anybody watching here, would be a candidate for that risk factor.
Right. Including me, I guess. But nonetheless, I mean, endurance ain't the best. And it's better for some, or not as bad for some as it is for others, due to and I'm wondering, if you're okay with it, we first take it from maybe a genetic angle.
Well, that's what's going to do with the risk factors. This is something that most people don't even know. There is actually a number of genetic tests and risk factors you can actually look at to look at how predisposed. Have you done any of these? Genetic testing for your heart risk?
I have. Mine was more around stomach, interestingly enough. And I don't have any family history apart from my uncle that had a bypass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a kind of indirect one that they can do for the stomach. Yeah, but that's probably pretty indirect. But there's actually 5 genetic tests that you can actually get done that will actually give you a really good indicator if you're at risk. And the nice thing about these test results is that you can take them and then you can actually address the risk factors associated with them, so that you reduce to basically neglect it to zero the risk factors. The problem is you got to know about you got to know about these. I mean, that's along with everything else with all the other testing. Yeah. We'll discuss it maybe on the next time, because we can go deep on this. Today we'll kind of cover more on what the tests are, because that will probably take up the time that we have, and kind of some thought behind why we're looking at these tests. So the main 5 we're looking at is 9p21. The APOE. Now, APOE is kind of got.
I know about that one.
That's got 6 fractions involved there, which we'll get into. And the KIF6, and then the IL1, and then the HG, which is the heptoglobulin, which is associated with the iron factor.
What was the KO one? We lost you there for a sec.
KIF6. I'll go over each one for those.
Right.
Okay. So
awesome.
So the big one that people probably may have heard of, I don't know if kind of depends on who's watching, but the 9p21 genotype.
Right.
Now that's probably what they call that the heart attack gene. Okay, so it's a huge factor towards looking at heart attack risks factors. So if you have that homogeneous gene present, I mean basically 2 pairs active, so usually from both parents, then your risk factors go up considerably. Now that can be a factor even if you take into consideration all the other risk factors, diabetes, blood pressure, inflammatory markers, obesity, all taken account. Yeah, well, cholesterol, we'll get into that.
See you later, okay?
It is a factor with certain genotypes, but that's a little bit more complex when we get the breakdown of that as well. But taking all those kind of factors, even above that, this is really an independent predictor for cardiovascular event. So now about I think 25%. I think it's 25% of just. I think it's Europeans and Asians. I think if I recall the study now, there's about 25% have the homogeneous gene, which means basically they have the gene from both their mother and father. Okay, so it's quite a high percentage out there of the Caucasian, European type and Asian population. Now there are other ethnics in the world, so the studies are just not there with that yet. So you probably find it's probably somewhere in that 20 to 30% mark, I'd say, anyway, across the board.
Right.
So you've got a pretty high chance of this being present.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean,
Sort of like
looking at the
being
risk.
lactose intolerant. 70% of the world, I think, is like lactose intolerant unless you're from Northern Europe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, only actually, funny enough, only place I can eat any dairy products is Switzerland.
Ha, there you go.
And it's raw dairy too, so that helps as well.
Right.
Yeah, so looking at the 9p21 gene, the risk factors is like massive. It's enormous, like it's 100+% increased risk of suffering a heart attack compared to non-carriers.
Okay, so let's kind of, I want to sort of dumb this down for people because
Yeah.
people get lost. You know, they'll get their genetic thing back and it'll say, oh, the thing that you're most predisposed to is getting brain cancer. And they go, oh shit, I'm going to die of brain cancer.
Yep.
Can we just break it down on the stats and what that actually means to people so they can put it in perspective?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Risk factor. Risk factors
Right.
is not you're going to have it. You have an increased risk factor, means that okay, let's do something about this. Let's take care of the factors that will predispose you to that. Smoking.
Right. So that switches the gene. That switches the gene on, or what does it actually do? Let's say unhealthy lifestyle, like smoking.
Well, that goes along with other factors, risk factor. I mean, smoking is more linked to cardiovascular disease and cancers by a long way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about smoking and cancer, which is there, but cardiovascular disease is far higher risk factor with smoking. But with this, so with this gene, with these risk factors, your risk factors go up. But if you eliminate all the other things that switch it on, then we can actually downregulate that gene potentially, and especially with some of the other ones we'll talk about later on, more so. And then also we can neglect things in your lifestyle that could be adding to your risk factor, so you can decrease it through the other way. So like we talked about smoking, which adds on to the other end, insulin management, which we'll get into a little bit. There's just, a huge number of factors, of risk factors that can kind of neglect or you can actually, if you neglect these risk factors, that will increase your risk factor towards coronary heart disease. So your point here is that, okay, let's say you smoking, someone who smokes has a 4 times, actually I think it's like 12 times chance of coronary heart disease. If you have this gene present, that increases that. So basically, put it look this way, it magnifies all the other factors.
Right. Okay. So if you're saying 12 times, you're saying 12 times.
I'm just estimating.
For example, right? 12, when you refer to, or when other experts refer to it, they're saying you have 100% times the risk, which means twice the risk of having it compared to the other people
who don't have that gene.
The genetic testing.
Yeah.
People that don't have that gene. Okay.
Okay. So people who have the gene have twice as much risk, or 100%. I'm not seeing any.
You got to go side.
I actually did that, but they're all disappearing on me. So we've got 100% risk increase risk factor when we compare those with the gene and without the gene. Okay, so that gene, the 9p21 gene is really a big player, and that should be on the top of your list of when you're doing your genetic testing, is looking at that gene and seeing if that is present first off. Now, if you have one of the markers present, then it's still, risk factor is still there. Not as high, but it's still there. So
okay, and it depends, does it not, from an epigenetic point of view of whether we're switching that gene on or off. Is that correct? So you can have it. Okay, fine. I've got the software package on the shelf. I hope I'm not using it.
Expression. Remember we talked about that in the we talked a little bit about that in the one that got removed by Facebook.
Oh yeah. Don't encourage them.
So that 100% risk factor is actually for expression. Risk factors and expression is probably 2 key factors people need to remember. Just because you had the gene, it's not the end of the world. It's good to know that, because then you can go, okay, let's make sure that this doesn't happen to me. We can address this, remove potential factors in my lifestyle that could be putting me at higher risk than normally would be. Basically, just what you're trying to do.
That's where you have. Right, so that's where you have the choices, and this is the important thing. Like with chronic disease in general, it's a choice. You may have it, and you've got. Let's not call it a bomb, but you have something in there that you don't want to light up. You don't want it to express, right? And so there's lifestyle factors outside the gene on decisions that you make, right? Whether it's how you tolerate stress, what you eat, whether you're exercising, how you're sleeping, etc., etc., etc. We know them. That can switch it on or switch it off. Is what you're saying? Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. So, so that 100% increases for basically any age. You know, you can have a early age onset of the, you know, having a heart attack or anything like that. The risk factors jump even further when you're looking at, you know, overall risk factors for over a whole lifetime. So as you age, you know, also another increased factor there. So as you get older, the more higher risk you are. And that could be also because, you know, you've got to take in with some of these studies is that a lifetime of poor lifestyle choices that accumulate and increase that risk factor too.
Right. So just want to say there, Pete. So then, like, you don't catch a heart attack, you don't catch cancer. It's like anywhere from 5-7 years to 15-20 years of abuse. Maybe you didn't even know you're abusing your system. Maybe you're just eating what's food for someone, but poison for you as an individual.
Funny enough, we talk about that. Yeah. We'll talk about that later on, actually, about certain supplements.
Okay. All right, cool. But yeah, just to put it in perspective for people that, well, and I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that, Pete? That you jumped off the train.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't know where you got. Did you have your coffee?
It was going to be earth-shattering. No, I didn't.
Yeah, but basically it's overall lifestyle and the accumulation lifestyle. So you may be doing something that's good for one person, but may not be suitable for you. We talked about that with the metabolic typing, dieting, and nutrition. So, you know, one food would, you know, one person's medicine, another person's poison. So that's the way you got to look at it.
Right.
And that's why we look at other factors, you know, other lifestyle factors in the genetic testing. But this is if you even, I mean, I think this should be becoming standardized testing these days. But if you think you've got a risk factor there, get it checked anyway.
Get it checked. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see what software packages you've got on the shelf. It's going to be good because we're going to get all of these from you to go and check for, and people can then go and do that. So, okay, so I've got these in here, and obviously subsequently we're going to talk at some stage about what lifestyle choices you should make to avert switching those or getting those genes to express.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the whole point, is that you don't want to wait until it's too late. I mean, once you start getting the symptoms, so forth, let's deal with it before that. You know, it's prevention's better than cure, as they say. So we want to deal with this beforehand and neglect any potential problems coming down the line. So if you can find this stuff out early on, even if you're, you know, maybe people listening in their 20s thinking this is not relevant to me, very relevant, because a lifetime of, you know, not addressing or dealing with these potential risk factors, then it could be adding up when you get to 40, which, you know, 40 is not a high on a general market. I mean, when you get to 40, you don't think about you're going to die of a heart attack, but it happens often, and particularly with these genes present.
Right, and stress, especially if you're in a white-collar worker in the corporate world, I've seen them dying in their 40s.
Corporate's the worst.
Oh, right. For stress, because you've got that saber-tooth tiger, the cortisol, all that stress-related stuff that's causing the abrasions on the endothelium, I believe. Whoa, I got sciencey there. But I was saying before that, and like you said, chronic disease happens over many, many years. That's what I was trying to say before. There's a cardiologist in Florida, Dr. Jorge Bordenave, and I mean, he's quite vocal, and he's written books about nutrition, the food industry, right? He's a functional integrative cardiologist. And I know you've got a good friend also in Sydney.
Hosen.
And Hosen, right. And Hosen. He talks, Hosen? Right, Hosen.
Hosen, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about, I was in there and I was getting some tests done. And he said, look, this kid next to me here, he had an intern there. And he said, this guy has probably got lesions on his arteries because of diet. And in fact, it starts at around 10 years of age, potentially. So I'm getting my kid checked like checking things like cholesterol and some of those correlative type factors, right? I know you've got a comment. You're going to talk about cholesterol at some stage too, but yeah, it starts young. So let's start to turn the ship around as soon as you can. You know.
Well, some
Sorry,
of these,
Pete.
no, that's a good point too, and kind of to add on to that, some of these big companies that have high-end executives that they're paying out big money to, it's worthwhile for them to pay to get this genetic testing done.
Oh yeah.
And so that you think about the decrease in your risk factors of your high-end employees who you're paying out $1 million plus a year to, whatever. I mean, to kind of keep them in the game as long as possible, making you a lot of money, you know, taking care of these little risk factors can make a big difference.
So I sort of look at it like you've got, if you had a Formula One racing team as a metaphor, and you have got your execs in there, and you've got a few on the top end of the team that are racing at the Formula One level, you want to be managing that team, and especially those guys out on the Formula One race car, really well. If they're going full hard pedal to the metal and they've got dirty fuel they're putting in their system and everything else, they're not going to make it to the end of the race.
Exactly.
So
that's a really
go
good
and
one.
check these things out, So
So I mean, there's we can go on forever about the risk factors. There's actually a whole, maybe I'll do a little kind of print up for you, and you can put it on your page there
the show
too.
Notes
so
here. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Because the risk factors are phenomenal. There's
based on the genome.
Yeah, based on this one here alone. So you're looking at sometimes as much as 4 times.
Oh, we just locked up a little there. Wondering if that's your side or my side. Come back. All right, let's have a look, Pete. We seem to have lost a bit of internet. And well, we lost him. Okay, guys. So Peter, New Zealand internet, it must be. Someone's cut the cable there temporarily. So yeah, look, what? Just to sort of put this once again in a summary is. Oh, there we go. Okay, here he goes, coming back and approve. All right, we're getting him back. I can still hear you, Tommy. So thanks, Craig. So in summary, guys, we just lost you there for a minute, Pete. I'm just giving a quick summary as to where we're at.
People call me at the most inconvenient times.
That's what happened. The bloody phone rang. How rude! Don't I know that you're helping to save the world?
Let me finish my one thought there because I had it in my mind.
Go on. Go for it.
Yeah. So I was saying there was a 4 times increased risk of a cardiovascular disease, or particularly an event, with people who don't manage their blood sugars, particularly those with kind of type 2 diabetes and so forth. So if you, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, which is one of the other gene markers we want to test for, that insulin management and insulin sensitivity and control of glucose and everything, that's a big risk factor for coronary heart disease that they don't take into account enough. It's bigger than cholesterol.
Isn't that crazy? My God, I remember when I was in Queenstown and you said, hey, look, the whole cholesterol myth, go and have a look at this YouTube video. What's the name of that video that you sent me to?
If you look up on YouTube, just look up Keys 7-country study.
Keys, Keys, 7 country
study. Yeah. And exposes the truth behind that, because there's actually a whole lot of countries they left out because it didn't fit in with their paradigm.
Right. How convenient for the industry. So, all right. So, look, I just want to sum up to where we're at so people understand, and for those that are just joining. So, we're taking it from a genetic level first, and we're saying you said there was 4 genes. You gave the name of those genes, and if you don't mind sort of reading those off
5.
again.
There's 5 actually. Well, 5 genetic tests we want to do. So, again, go over it again. It's the 9p21, and then CAPOE. Yeah, the APOE. The K, and then the KIF6.
KIF6.
Yep.
That was it?
IL-1
IL-1?
and
Okay.
what we call the HG, which is related to blood sugar management.
HG related to blood sugar management. Okay. So someone goes and gets a test. Where should they, and can you advise perhaps a couple of options for getting testing done?
Well, some of these, it depends on what country they are in. It really does. The country they're in will be determined where they go. If they go through their specialist, cardiologist, or whoever they're seeing, then they will be able to get these tests done, absolutely, for sure. You can get a complete genome test done, which is quite expensive, and you won't be covered on that.
Yep.
Some of these are covered by insurance in some countries, some of them aren't. So it varies a lot. I can guarantee that your specialist will be able to do them. Even potentially in some countries, your GP might be able to order them as well. I know in the US, the GP can probably order all these as well. Australia, where you are, I have no idea at the moment where that industry is, because I know they're putting some regulation on that quite strongly there.
Right, 23andMe don't do it, do they?
No, they won't get all these.
23andMe,
well, unless they've changed since the last time.
Guys, right, okay, so just want to make
they
clear
keep changing.
To people. Go on. Right,
so
a number of these companies will do 100, 150, 200 different genes. They won't do your full genome, your full you, as Peter's saying. And, you know, it's recreational testing for $100, $200, and some of it's hereditary based for hereditary reasons, etc., to check your, your lineage and your family tree. But to get your full test these days, around about, what does it cost? It's about $1,000 these days, or what is it?
Oh, for the complete? No, it's a couple of $1,000 US.
Couple of grand US to get everything checked. But for these ones, you need to check on these genes.
One of these is quite
expensive as well. That's about 300 in Japan. There's one that I did, about 350 different genes.
It could cover some of these. So the thing is, you just have to look up. If anybody's done 23andMe, they can look up these and see if it's on their list of what they've tested. Because I know 23 kind of does change and shift what they're testing sometimes over the many years.
Add value.
So they maybe they're now. Last time I checked, no, but not all of them. I think one of them was. I think the APOE was one of them that was on there. But this is going back 7 or 8 years when it first came out. So I think that was
APO1B. I think it is. Is it APO? I think it's APO1B or something. Anyway.
I don't know what they have on there now.
Okay. So
they keep changing them.
Genes. All right. Now we're talking about sugar, because everybody's thinking fat and cholesterol. We mentioned the Keys 7 countries study about the cholesterol myth, which everybody should go and check that to understand really that cholesterol ain't such a bad thing. What's your, if you don't mind me asking, Pete, your cholesterol level is what on the American scale?
On the American scale, I keep mine about 250 ideally, and that matches my genetic 250 genotype as well.
Right.
Yep.
Now, most people, this is going to give a heart attack to, just hearing that news and going, "What? Up in 250? Isn't that too much?"
Well, you've got to look at all the other factors.
Right.
So,
okay.
So you've got to look at ratios, HDL to total, HDL to LDL. Often they don't measure LDL. You've got to look at all those other factors to triglycerides as well, and then, more importantly, you break down the LDL to particle size. So the particle size, which they don't commonly test for, which you want to start getting tested for, is the big one there.
Right. So like lipoprotein A, for example.
Yeah. Well, that one there is really important, and that's where we talked about this before. Niacin is a really big help on that one. Niacin with chromium, I'm finding, is actually very effective.
In a compound, or niacin and
you just
chromium?
Niacin and chromium, so taken separately. So usually most people take chromium pictinate.
Okay, and dosage, I think you take like a few hundred milligrams of niacin. People just start on what, about 100 or something? Yeah,
start at 50 and work your way up, see your sensitivity. I'm at 500.
You're at 500.
But most people will be jumping in a cold shower if they start at 500.
Right,
because you do get the hot flash. There's a side effect of a hot flash, which is not a negative, it's not a bad thing. It's not harming you, but it can be very uncomfortable if you're not used to it. You can actually build up your tolerance. I've had friends who've gone up to 1,000 milligrams. So
Wow.
I find 500 is a good, nice dosage for me. And
work
then
up
the chromium,
Okay.
and then the chromium, you're probably only looking at anything from 200 to 500 micrograms.
Okay.
Micrograms, not milligrams. It's not milligrams.
Micro, so even smaller.
Yeah.
And nicotinic acid version of niacin, not the long release, slow release one. It's the one that does give you the flash. The one that gives you the flash, not the anti-flash.
Well, they'll say on the bottle, non-flush. That's the one you don't want. You want the ones that are flush. You want the quick release.
Right.
There's a couple of reasons for that, for the effect of it, but also decrease the potential harm it can cause liver function. It can cause liver kind of, I wouldn't say damage, but can actually influence your liver a little bit with the long duration, slow release ones.
Slow release ones. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And chromium, any suggestion of where people should get this from? Because you want it to be, as you would say, assimilate or absorbed by the body, because there's so much vitamins and supplements you piss out, basically.
Well, niacin and chromium is so cheap on the market that it's not a big deal. I use pure encapsulation, and I use
the blue label pure and Metagenics.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Metagenics is two there. I'm just trying to think if I've used others in the past too. I can't remember any other ones I've used as well, but those are the main two I've used.
Right. I think you can go to inpharmacy.vu. I think you can get access to this stuff as well, or your naturopath or someone that has a Metagenics access to products.
Well, I remember there was a store in Santa Monica. If anybody lives around Santa Monica area, there's a store in Santa Monica that does. It's a pharmacy, compound pharmacy, homeopathic place. They kind of have it all in there as well, so they can find it. I'm sure there's stores throughout the US for that.
All right.
Australia might be a little bit more stringent on that, but you can still find it there.
Okay. CoQ10. What about CoQ10 for?
Yeah, CoQ10 is a good variant, but I mean that's not really. That's kind of more with mitochondria function and health, but not so much with the blood sugar influence, which is, I mean, well, we kind of shifted from blood sugar.
Now let's go back. I do want to go. I wanted to close that loop with the blood sugar as well.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back there. So you're saying this is worse than cholesterol?
Yeah. So it's a bigger risk factor because it's actually, most people misunderstand what causes a cardiac event or a stroke or anything like that. So, I mean, we'll get back to that in a moment. But the gene present, what we're looking for with the gene testing, we can test for this if you're a risk factor for like pre-diabetes or diabetes as well, type 2. We're talking type 2. Type 1 is a whole different factor, okay? So we won't even go there. So this particular gene test, which is the HG gene, that kind of determines whether you have that high risk factor for type 2 diabetes we're referring to. It can be present in type 1, but there's other factors involved with type 1 that you don't have to be concerned about at this point. I mean, you've got type 1, you kind of, there's a whole different avenue you've got to go down. So one of the problems with this gene is it regulates what we call haptoglobin, which is basically a protein that's produced by the liver, and that binds to hemoglobin, okay? So hemoglobin you've probably heard of before, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is produced in red blood cells when they die, okay? So hemoglobin is bound quickly, if it, and in ideal transport. But if it's not bound quickly, what can happen? It will release the iron, and iron is a huge risk factor. It can harm arterial health and in a number of different ways, because iron can actually oxidate the LDL. When we were talking about the IDL before, so iron can oxidate the LDL, and at a greater weight with the small particle LDL. So that's where we want to look at the fractions as well. But just the LDL itself in general, looking at it, so we have a high oxidation rate of the LDL, which then causes that whole, rust of the arteries.
Rust of the arteries.
Yeah, rust of the arteries, if you can put it that way.
So it's good. So it's penetrating through, isn't it? Like the small particles of LDL, like we said, lipoprotein A is one of them. The small particles of LDL, is that what? So it penetrates the wall of the artery, the endothelium, and then creates inflammation underneath, or what's kind of happening there?
It can, yeah. So that can cause irritation of the arterial wall, and then you can actually have, and that's where other gene markers come into it with inflammation response. So you can have an over response to inflammation with it. Calcification build up, because calcium is one of the scores you want to test for. And this is another one. This is not a genetic test, but your calcium score, which is done by a MRI, that's really important. If you haven't done that, get that done. Have you done that?
Right. Yeah. And it's about $100 or something to get it done wherever you are for an MRI. But it's not causation; it's correlation. Correct?
It will basically look. It will look for any of the damage that's there in the arteries. So if the plaque is building up, it can actually determine whether that's you got a closure or occlusion in the artery itself, and the degree of occlusion as well.
Right.
There is other ways that non-invasive meaning not as extreme, which is using ultrasound. Particularly they go through here and test in the neck area to look at the arteries there and see if there's an issue there, and that will pick up if there's an issue elsewhere.
Right. We got Anne there giving a lot of love, by the way, mate. You know.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to the calcium factor, the calcium score is probably something people really need to get tested too if they haven't had that done too. Again, that's another more important than looking at cholesterol. Not saying you shouldn't have cholesterol, but yeah, it's more important.
Mine was pretty high, but you can also work it back, right? Because I want people to think that this isn't a one-way street and a death sentence. And
if you score high, you can reverse it.
You can reverse it. Now, people don't understand this. Of course, the industry loves to push cholesterol. We've got just a note here from Anne Western Murphy. The body makes cholesterol. If it is elevated, it is the body trying to heal. Trying to heal inflammation at some level. Cholesterol is not the problem. Inflammation damage is. Cholesterol bullshit is all about money, as was just saying. All sorts of testing. Sorry, mate.
Okay, so So the cholesterol markers, we've got to see what's going on there. They're more like an indication of how we're going to treat this. Maybe it's not saying that the cholesterol is not the cause. It's going to give us some ideas of the best treatment protocol.
Yep.
But it's not the cause. So forget about that being the cause. If your cholesterol suddenly shoots up, like Anne was saying, there's probably something going on with inflammation markers, other factors going on there that causing it to raise up. The way I explain this to people is when you go to a house fire, what do you always see there? Firemen. So in their thinking, okay, every time you see a house fire, there's firemen. So does that mean firemen cause the house fire?
No, they're trying to put it out.
The cholesterol are like your firemen. So every time there's a fire, the cholesterol increases to fix the damage to the arterial walls. And so basically, think about this too. An important factor here is cholesterol makes up every cell membrane in your body.
Right.
Okay.
And the brain needs LDL, right?
Your brain, LDL is a lipoprotein. Remember, LDL, HDL, lipoprotein is not actually cholesterol. They're transporters.
Right.
So really make it simple. One transports in, one transports out, recycle. To keep it real simple for you folks there. So that's why people kind of look at LDL thinking just automatically LDL is bad, HDL good. If you had no LDL, you'll be dead.
You'd be dead, right?
Because you're only transporting one way.
So do people produce too much, or they can't get rid of it? Does that actually matter? According to what you're saying. If you have a sudden spike in it, it depends on your genetic type. What ideal for you? They keep lowering that ideal number to a dangerous level now, because if you have your cholesterol too low, you actually increase the risk factors for cancers quite considerably. I believe the total cholesterol below 160 starts to cause the increase of risk factors for cancers. Right, and then can you break that out for HDL and LDL? What those numbers
total. Well, that's the ratio of 4:1, but the total cholesterol you're looking at 160. If it goes below 160, then and there's the ratio 4:1 ratio for the HDL to LDL type thing you want to keep an eye on. The total cholesterol, and your LDL ratios. There's a whole school of things you got to look at. Those different ratios between all those. So you got to look at
4 times.
I'm trying to remember off the top of the head. I had to look it back up again, but I believe it's 4 times LDL.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then you've got to compare that to triglycerides, so you've got to compare it to total cholesterol as well. And then, as I said before, we've got to break down that LDL to particle size too, to look at the high risk particle size, which is the small particle size, which comes back to our sugar management, because guess what increases small particle LDL? Sugar, basically insulin management is a big contributor towards that small particle LDL. So testing this gene is going to give you a really good indicator. Okay, if you have this gene present, it means that I would say you want to get a OTTG done as well. OGTT, sorry. OGTT is a oral glucose tolerance test. It's a 2-hour test they do with the oral glucose solution, and then measure your blood glucose levels over 2 hours. That would be highly recommended. I think anybody who think they made a cardiovascular risk factor, get that tested anyway. Because testing your fastest glucose doesn't tell you how you manage that glucose, because you're doing it fasted. It tells you what your fasted glucose is, so it could be very low. I've seen people with fasted glucose very good, insulin very good. They do OGTT and it's crap. So the ability to manage sugar when it's present is really bad. But when there isn't, they can actually keep those numbers within good numbers, which you want your fasted glucose to sit below 70, really.
Right, and fast. So you wake up in the morning, and they want you to fast before doing a glucose test overnight.
Usually it's a 10-hour fast, yeah.
Right, yeah, and so it's going to be low, and hopefully it's around 70. But what you're saying is more
below.
Would be in line with, but you're saying that when you then get load on and there's sugar in the system, how quickly, or what is your glycemic variability? How much does it spike, or where is it?
We often
this
see
other test checks.
We want to see the spike. Also, we want to see if there's often it can be a double spike as well, which is really bad. These whole variations will break down. There's too many variations to go into, but looking at that, when you get that test done, I mean, the person who's doing it for you will be able to break it down for you. But that test will be a really good indicator of your management. And then if you have this gene that we're talking about present, which is the HG gene, then you know, okay, I need to really kind of dial in this. And the interesting thing about this, I mentioned this earlier, was about the supplements that you can take for this. So one of the supplements, and this is actually, I'll kind of break this down in 2 different ways. So when they look at this genotype, if you have this genotype, they say vitamin E is around about vitamin E.
Okay.
Around 400 milligrams plus per day is essential. But then what they did say was taking vitamin E when you don't have this genotype means it can actually increase your risk.
Jeez, so you got to check whether you got it or not.
Now, let me give you the caveat to that, is that they were doing the studies with synthetic vitamin E. Now, vitamin E, it's not just one fraction. What they do is isolate it. Actually, it's synthetic vitamin E is not even from true vitamin E. So that's what we talked about before a while ago about cod liver oil, because that's a full spectrum natural form of vitamin E.
Right.
That's
naturally
so
occurring.
that won't increase your risk factor. It's a synthetic form that increases your risk factor, not the natural form. So that's why you got to take that in factor. But if you do have this genotype, get that vitamin. Make sure you are at least supplementing with some vitamin E from a natural source. No matter what, you want to go for the natural source. So this kind of goes into the debate about synthetic versus natural. And there is a big difference, because very high percentage of the synthetic supplements out there are actually produced from petroleum.
Which comes from, let me think, is it Rockefeller and Carnegie that got together and invented the medical industry as we see it today in the Western world 100 years ago?
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and they shunned out the homeopaths and the naturopaths, the osteopaths, all got kicked out the door as, sort of like witchery and burnt at the stake, basically. And only just coming back in now.
Remember, allopathic medicine was using mercury. Allopathic meaning, your modern medicine. Remember, they used to
Right.
do bloodletting. They used to do all that kind of
God.
stuff. Yeah, but mind you, saying
Well, that
bloodletting, coming
killed.
back.
Didn't that bloodletting killed? One of the presidents of the US. I
Yes,
reckon.
Lincoln. No, not Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Johnson.
No, he got shot. Johnson. I think it was
Jo-
Lyndon Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Johnson. I think so. Yeah, it was one of them. I
Yeah.
think Lincoln. Yeah, no. And I think it was Mercury as well. I think it was involved at the same time.
Right.
So,
Jeez.
so actually, that's the interesting thing about the coming back to the. We're talking about the oxidation of iron. Often people have too much iron in their system.
Right.
So one of the way females are actually not so bad because they go through the monthly cycles, but with
And get rid of
men,
it.
with men it can accumulate. So one of the things, if you're looking at your risk factors for iron and other markers there, which we should do a whole show on, but
Yeah.
doing donating blood or something once a month wouldn't be a bad thing.
I've heard about this too. Now, let's talk about this for a sec. And then, what about like with animals, red meat? You're going to have a lot more iron, right? I haven't had red meat apart from your place where you tried to kill me. Only kidding.
It didn't work.
Didn't work. So far. But is it heme iron? What's heme iron?
So there's two different types of iron. The iron that your body can utilize in the type. It's like the same as B12. We have the active B12 and non-active B12 in the body, right? So
Right.
your plant sources of iron aren't as bioavailable, to put it simply. Okay, same thing we're talking about amino acid proteins, bioavailable proteins. So the bioavailability of the iron, or the ability of the body to use the iron, is different in plant matter compared to animal matter. Now, I wouldn't be too concerned about consumption of iron, except for if you take an iron supplementation. Don't take an iron supplementation unless you know really that you do need it, which is
that you're anemic.
Well, even that anemic is not actually anemic. It's actually, even that goes down a cycle where it's not what you think it is. So be really careful about ever taking iron supplements. A last resort, for sure.
Last resort, only if you need it for some other reason. Okay.
There's a last resort for the iron supplementation. But, take it in from natural sources. You've got to remember that it's got to pass through the gut and broken down. And there's actually your body can regulate it quite well unless you're overloading big time. But you aren't going to overload with taking it in meat every day. If you can eat meat 3 times a day, no problem, and you won't be overloaded on iron.
Right. Okay.
Some of the biggest culprits is with fortified iron. Fortified iron in foods. Yeah, I think they were doing it in breads for a while there. I don't know if they still are. The fortified iron and other things in these, and they're using synthetic fortification as well with other nutrients. I think they were putting in vitamin D in milk, weren't they, at one point?
Oh God, yeah.
So they were trying to fortify these foods, but using
folate bread.
Yep. Well, folic acid, not
folic
folate.
acid.
Folic acid and folate, different thing.
So just as an aside, because I want to come back also to omega-3 and 6 in a moment, but and synthetic and normal or whatever. But with the folic and folate stuff, does that relate at all to anything with regards to cardio?
Yeah. Well, it can be depending. You can look at that as a factor too, especially with methylation. But that's kind of gets into looking at methylation more than anything. Yeah. It's a lot more into it, but it can be a methylfolate, something you might want to look at. I'd say you probably can't hurt to have a B complex in an active form, the methyl form of a B complex.
Right.
It can't hurt. There's no risk factors in taking it. And there's only upsides. I mean, that's just a big complex. Like I use one from Pure Encapsulation, which is pretty good, and that's just giving you a kind of a mild dosage of everything on that big complex. Now, if you have a gene mutation that which you're more prone to methylation issues, then you may need to do very high dosage, in the thousands of milligrams of methylfolate. And your B12 as well, your methylcobalamin as well.
Right. Okay.
So that's
all right. So
thousands.
Okay.
Well, actually,
so let's
B12.
get
Be careful.
to
B12 is micrograms too. B12 is
micrograms. Yeah.
Yeah. Just make sure people don't
Yeah.
mistake
Okay.
milligrams. Yeah.
All right. So now red meat, is there? So red meat's fine for people because usually it's like, oh, for me, I change it when very plant based because you have Dr. Esselstyn, who started at the Cleveland Clinic, who's very much around cardio, and Dean Ornish and so on. And they go very much plant and off the meats for those that they're trying to reverse heart disease in. And then you've got Dr. William Davis, who talks about and gives the industry a hammering. He's got to be careful, that guy. But he talks about getting grains completely out of your diet. This may connect back to the sugar thing, I don't know. But can you comment on that?
Grains is a major problem.
Don't swear. Don't swear, Pete.
I haven't sworn yet. Less than you have.
Right.
So yeah, grains are a big one. The red meats. The problem with the red meat is that people eat the crap shit stuff. Here we go. There's a swear word for you. So they're kind of taking in all the stuff that's like grain fed, industrial beef.
Right.
They're not eating enough organ meats.
Right.
They're not eating enough variety of the animals too. They might be only eating steak from cow.
Tip the toe, sort of nose to the bum kind of thing.
But also vary the animal you're eating too. You know, chicken like you do, but make sure you get good source chicken. And could probably talk a whole hour on chicken, you know, and bringing them up. But
come from a chicken farm family.
Yeah. But even just looking at the variations through there, quail, turkey, pigeon. I mean, I've lived all around the world, so I've eaten every variety you could think of as far as that's concerned. You know, like as far as red meat's concerned, you're looking at your beef, which is the most common, but then you got your venison, you got your horse, which is probably banned in most countries except for Europe and Asia. Then you got your lamb, your sheep and lamb, your mutton and lamb. And then you have goat. People don't think about goat meat. Goat meat's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the varieties out there, all those are available. There's actually a place in the US that used to sell, it still does, I think. I can't remember the name of it, but wild meats, something like that. We used to get python meat.
Right. Right. Okay.
Alligator meat. We used to get alligator.
God. Okay.
Sorry, that was someone calling me again. People just won't give up.
Ring you? Yeah, I had one before.
Yeah.
All right. So it's about not so much the meat; it's about how clean the meat is. So the product we get
source of the meat
is generally available. Right. It's all gone through industry. It's processed. So you need wild. Like same with salmon. If we're talking omega-3 and 6, which we're going to talk about in a moment.
Yep.
Fish and oily fish, you want to make sure it's wild caught, not farmed. And so like with salmon, for example, a nice clean wild caught salmon, not a farm salmon, and they look very different. One's very pink, and it
depends on where it's caught to in the world.
Strong, muscular.
You got to be careful where.
Interesting.
Because remember how oceans are so contaminated. Well, especially with Fukushima being one fact. Well, you got radiation, pollution. So there's a whole big problem with different areas of the world that are so polluted that I would not, like when I would barely ever touch fish. Now I will.
Right.
Where I am now, sorry, someone keeps ringing back and don't get the idea that I'm busy.
But get the message?
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah. So where I am now is, like I can get stuff from Stewart Island, which is about as clean as you can. That's going heading towards Antarctica there. So very clean salmon around this area in the lower South Island, pretty clean.
Right. New
but
Zealand.
Then in the US, I would not want to touch anything there. Most of it was farmed anyway. A lot of it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Exactly. And the grains with glyphosate, which has infected the world. Yep. All good.
Can you hear me?
All right. Yep. So
I'm freezing up here.
Can you hear me? No, you're still fine on this end.
Must be Australian internet.
It could be.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
No, I've got no glitches here. So then let's, if you're cool with it, Pete, then talk a bit about with salmon, and we're talking about oils. Yep, you're still good for me. Yep.
It's going weird.
Your end, you're losing me a bit.
Must be Facebook police again.
Could be. Wow. So
yeah, I'm losing you.
Are you? I've got you fine. I've had no problem.
I've lost you.
Okay, so wait till Pete comes back properly. What we're going to talk about here too, guys, is omega-3, omega-6. And that's also got to be in the right ratio and of the right source. So omega-3 from plants can be quite different than getting omega-3 from fish. Algae is different again. I know that kind of fits in the plant category, although it's a sea type of plant. And then you've got things like plankton, where you can get it from. But once again,
are you talking about omega-3?
Yeah. So what's your spin on omega-3 and the best sources of that? And which one? DHA, EPA? Everybody gets confused about this, right?
Yeah.
And plants versus animals.
Yeah, well, your plant is going to be, like you mentioned, the algae that could be processed, and you can get some, long chain from that. But with your plants, it's going to be primarily short chain omega-3 that you're getting from them. So the issue with that is your body's got to convert it to long chain to be useful in your body. So the conversion, let's say a conversion on average is about 10%.
Yep.
It may be as low as 1%, it may be as high as 12, 13%, but still very, very low percentage is going to be converted to, changed over to what we call long chain omega-3. There is with EPA, DHA, those are the two that I'm kind of looking at in concentrations in the omega-3. The DHA is kind of very important for younger brain development.
Yep.
So, we're working with, that might be too bright, is it? Yep, it is. So we're working with, with babies and stuff like that. Don't give baby EPA. It's only DHA only.
Right.
So young babies being, like, I actually have a droppers here. Let me see if I can get it for you. I have droppers here for DHA for my baby, which as soon as they kind of start on food, they can start on taking it. DHA will help with brain development and so forth.
Which from what animal is the DHA? What source?
Let me find it here for you first. So I'm trying to see if it's here.
Right.
Maybe we don't have it in there at the moment.
So that's interesting. So it's the short chain version comes from plants. The body has to do extra work to then try and assimilate it or absorb it.
So that's not as good.
Salmon or fish, for example.
Yeah, I've only got the. Funny enough, I've got baby probiotics here, but I can't find. I think the B12 may be coming back in. We may be just out of it right now. We're out of it. So, the B12 source from that one is for DHA. I believe it's actually an algae again. I believe on that one. And I believe it could be a liposomal delivery on that one.
Right, so that it absorbs nicely into the body. Okay.
So once you get up to 2 years old, but baby, the kids can absorb better the EPA as well. So you can start reducing that from 1.5, 2 years age. You can, if you want to supplement with that. But the research shows that brain development and intelligence can increase with if you do supplement with that.
Right. Okay. So what about vitamin D and cardio?
Vitamin D can be an important factor in your cardiovascular health. They've kind of played with that number. It kind of gets a little bit more independent depending on the individual. But I say if you keep your numbers between 60 to 80, you're kind of within that range, you're going to be doing okay.
And 60 to 80, what unit? Is it mmol or is it
I can't remember now.
The reading
Sorry.
is. I know it's the standard Australian, and the US measure, I guess.
Yeah,
anyway.
60 nanograms.
Nanograms, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Per deciliter.
So ideally, get it up to 100 if you can.
Well, no, not really. If you go over 100, maybe with certain cancer patients and stuff like that.
Wow.
But the important factor is taking in your vitamin K with that, and then K has a big play with the cardiovascular health.
Ah, now what is it K2?
So
Is
the
it K2 and there's a K4?
K2 specifically, there's different vitamin K. Specifically with the vitamin D, taking K2 is quite important. You can take a complex vitamin K, but K2 is the one that's primarily what you're looking at when you're taking it with vitamin D. And there's some supplements have there's two different forms of K2 as well, but I don't really think there's a big difference. Some supplements actually combine both of them in there.
Right.
But I know Life Extension brand, they do one with the vitamin K blend. Yeah. They do a vitamin D with the vitamin K. If you have a risk factor, you could look at vitamin K taking that as a supplemental form, independent of your vitamin D. We're coming into winter. We're coming into winter here, so you may want to also, if you're coming into winter, you're probably going to get less sun. You might want to bump up your dosages, or just have it monitored. Anyways, most people are kind of low on it these days because of the fact they don't get outside enough.
Right. And so what's the dosage? Like K2 dosage, D dosage, if you've got risk genes?
I'll grab the one I use here and I'll show you what I have. The Life Extension one here. Got too many supplements here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, so here's the one here. This actually has iodine in it too, which is just part of the binding process.
That's another one. Another one that's important. Okay.
Yeah, so this one here, this is, I believe, 5,000 IU vitamin D. And then it has the K1, K2, so it has the two forms of K2. Has a K1 and K2 has 1,000 micrograms, and then of the second form of K2 has 100 micrograms, which is about right because it's a different form. So that's about right. So that's got about 1,000 of the K1 and K2 in that one by Life Extensions. I don't know if you can see it.
1,000 K. So it's got about 1,000 K1, K2, and it's got D as well, right?
Don't know if you can see it because there's too much glare.
A little bit of glare. D and K, it says. Vitamin D and K, Life Extension. Got it. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, I mean, something like that. I take a 5,000 IU coming up to winter now.
Yeah.
We've actually got a little bit of snow over there on the mountain tops at the moment.
Oh,
very
cool.
far mountain tops. So, it's getting a bit cooler. You're not going to be able to see as much sun. The daylight savings kicked in, so we're getting shorter days. So,
what's the sun actually
those
doing?
In northern.
It's helping the synthesis, or does the sun provide vitamin D, or is it helping the vitamin D being absorbed that you already have, or what?
Yeah. Well, no, it's a stimulator for your body. So it's through the skin there, your body synthesizes it using the ultraviolet light from the sun to convert it to vitamin D. So the conversion process in the skin.
Right. So if you take a whole lot of vitamin D and you get no sun, is that going to work, or you still need to get the sun?
You really, because there's other stuff going on there, so you really do need to get some sun at some point. People cover up way too much, thinking they're going to get skin cancer.
Yeah.
I mean,
put all the creams on, which cause you
all the chemical.
Well
all the sunscreens are worse for you than actually overexposed. And the problem with the sun is that people kind of, for 12 or 11 months and 2 weeks, they stay inside in the office all year. And then for 2 weeks, they go out and just overexpose it.
Right.
So you want to, so you want a little bit of exposure every day.
Yeah.
And that's not going to cause the problems. That's why it's 10 times more likely that this is in research that that it's a 10-to-1 ratio for outdoor workers versus indoor workers getting skin cancer.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting?
And indoor work, so indoor workers are 10 times more likely to get skin cancer than outdoor workers.
Oh my God! Right there it is. People have got to really look into this sort of stuff. All right. So if we look at the other thing I've heard is nattokinase, like natto from soy. Who's that? Is that Truman, or is that Jasmine?
No, that's Mummy. That's Zoe.
Zoe.
The
nattokinase I've heard as well.
Yeah, that's an isolate from soy. So, I mean, you aren't going to get from soy if you're taking soy because it's an isolate. You aren't going to get the dosage you want, but that's another one. I think it comes down to looking at these genetic tests, and we only kind of covered 2 of them in this time. Maybe we can do another one to cover the rest. But the genetic testing is one factor that kind of really help you narrow down what you need to do. What supplements specifically do you need to take? What dietary changes do you need to make? So that we talked about at the beginning, one diet for one person may not be the best for another. If you're at a risk of cardiovascular disease, what I do is I look at, what we'd call a paleo Mediterranean zone diet, and then we just kind of twist it and change it for the individual from there. And the reason I use that term is it's a bit of everything in there, but it's getting enough plant matter in there, variety of plant matter, keeping away from things like grain, being the paleo version, which is, you keep all grains out of there. And those other things that causes inflammation. Even for some individuals, it could be things like we talked about before with nightshades and other compounds like that. With lectins, lectins can be an issue. And then, of course, with the zone diet being the ratio is not taking too much carbs in your ratio between your fat, carbohydrates, and proteins. So that's a very generalized, and then you can kind of just narrow it down from there. Some people may be more towards eating more ketogenic even temporarily, especially if they have blood glucose issues and stuff like that, and they need to manage. That could be a factor as well.
And like you said, sugar and the grains have a similar effect, right? Because they're both carbohydrates.
Well, actually, I think the grains have worse effect because they have other chemicals in there that causes reactions in the body, like lectins and other pro-inflammatory factors that add to inflammation beyond
naturally occurring, or the toxins from insecticides.
Naturally occurring. We're not even talking about the pesticides. We're talking naturally occurring. So, these things promote inflammation above just having that sugar spike or the sugar in there. So you could be eating pure sugar and it'll be less damaging
than grains. People don't know that. Still think that sugar is the bad guy now, after fat's been the bad guy for so long. The average person...
Sugar's not great. I mean, when we're taking sugar, we're talking processed
Too
stuff.
much.
I mean, if you're consuming carbohydrates in your diet,
fruit.
That may not be a bad thing. Well, fruit today is a little different to what it used to be. But, I mean, a little bit of fruit, vegetables, root vegetables, your sweet potatoes, kumara we have in New Zealand, but sweet potatoes, yams, things like that as well. It's not a bad thing necessarily for you. But when you start getting into the grains and stuff like that, then you start... Lactose is another issue.
I think Steve Gundry and goji beans. Was it goji? I think goji has lectins, or lectins something. A lot of So
I think they do the goji berry. You mean? The goji berry I think are okay. I believe. But there's a bean. I'm trying to think of the bean, which is there's a couple of beans which are really bad, but generally all the beans are quite high in those factors as well. In
lectins, because like the Blue Zone diet, Dan Buettner loves legumes. And he's all for legumes as a protein source, but you're saying, genetically maybe for someone, but not for someone else.
But then you got to look at what's the quality of protein source? The BV, or the bioavailability and the biological value of the protein is very, very low. So you're taking in a poor quality protein
source.
So maybe you look at what it says on the packet. It says it's got 35 grams of protein. Are you really getting 35 grams of protein out of it?
Into your body, hence the assimilation thing is such a big factor always, right? All right, well, look, what we'll do, I think there's a lot more we can do on this. So I want to see if we can do actually a part 3 on this, Pete, perhaps if you're up for it next week, take a different angle, because we went down the supplemental and reductionist type path, which is one way outside of pharmaceutical to blast a problem, to start to pull nutrients back into the shape level that they need to be, based on your genetic predisposition as well. And so obviously we need to connect that in. So I just want to put this in rough stages for people. First, go and get yourself tested for these genes. If you want to get your whole body tested for a couple of $1,000, if you're that way inclined and have the dollars, sure, you can do that. Is there any company you would suggest, by the way, for anybody that wants to go that far?
Well, it's different for every country. So there's a couple of good ones in Spain, but US, there was a company in New York. They're changing all the time, because I know there was a company in New York, but they got shut. They actually got shut down by the FDA, because the FDA doesn't.
That's interesting.
Well, they were shut down because of the information they were providing, not because they were doing a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
it wasn't because they were doing something wrong or it was something that was dodgy. It was the information. And 23andMe had the same problem too, where they were going through a bit of scrutiny from the FDA because they're providing risk factors. I think there was a number of risk factors they were providing to people that they shouldn't be putting down there. The FDA didn't want in there, so they had to go through. And if you look now on 23andMe, it's the amount of information is much less than what it used to be originally, because they're not allowed to. It's
what's the motive behind that? Why? Financially driven?
They don't want people knowing. Well, the FDA, I believe, were claiming that it was scaremongering people, because people didn't understand just because you had this gene and this risk factor. Like we talked about, just because you have the gene, it doesn't mean you're determined to die.
I can understand that too. Yeah, right.
It's a bit more about. It was about education.
Understand. Yeah. All right. Okay. I mean, if that's legitimately the case, then I would support that. It needs to be broken down properly so that people don't go into panic, misinterpreting.
Yeah, I think having someone to break it down for them, but also they could put more. I mean, basically, when people go into looking at the DNA, that's what they need to kind of go into more depth, explaining this is not meaning you're going to die from this. This is just a factor, maybe a fact. Like they need to explain it a bit better, which I don't even think the FDA bothered with looking at that. They just told them you can't give them this information, and that's it. Yeah. But see, there's plenty of places online you can go do these things anyway. You can use your data you get from 23andMe. You can download the raw data and load it in different sites, and they'll give you this information anyway.
Absolutely. And when we start to talk about getting people on the right path, epigenetically, I mean, I sort of use the PH 360 framework on getting people heading in the right direction. But in the short term, if they've got some things to fix, we need to have a look at what needs to give the specific precision attention as well. And that could be, as per this episode, from a supplement point of view, one way to be able to handle that in the shorter term versus getting on the right nutrition and exercise and all the lifestyle factors of epigenetics and expressing the right genes. So let's just to run down them now as we sort of land this one. We had vitamin K2 and K4. You mentioned pure encapsulation. We had, or was it life extension? Sorry.
Life extension that was the one with the vitamin D combination.
Right. Okay. We had what else? We've got.
You got your omega-3s we talked about before.
Omega-3. Any particular source of omega-3 apart from oily clean fish from New Zealand?
Yeah. Well, your good quality omega-3 can get that from beef as well.
Right.
If it's grass-fed, if it's naturally grass-fed and stuff like that. But
Clean
a lot of people address, if they're addressing the cardiovascular disease, then you might want to look at supplementing with a bit of higher dosage and stuff like that. I mean, whether it makes a massive difference, omega-3, I don't think it makes as big a difference as people make it out to be for cardiovascular events. But it is a factor. It just kind of got overreaction early on. And I use Metagenics one, which I know is clean. I'm sure there's other brands out there that are clean. I just personally use the Middleaged one because I know that one's clean. And you got to be careful because it's the filterization process they use to make sure there's no crap in it that you got to worry about. Yeah.
So
the ones.
Sorry, buddy. Go on.
Yeah. So niacin with chromium.
With chromium, pure encapsulation. You mentioned.
Yeah, that was one of the brands that we used. I think Metagenics was another one there too. But use one of those brands that are kind of reputable. Usually, what they refer to as doctors only brands. You can only get it from like a doctor, someone who's homeopathic or naturopathic as well. Those are kind of they have a little bit of better regulation on them, better quality. Dosage, there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there either.
Right.
So that's if you have the lipoprotein A problem, and there's inflammation marker.
Right. So check your cholesterol, but Cholesterol ain't the bad guy. Have a look at that Key 7 country report. Do a YouTube search on that to have a look at getting the confusion out of cholesterol. But it's the small particle LDL, one being lipoprotein A, getting a check for that. I know you can use services like Wellness Effects in the US and going to Quest for draw blood. Everly Well, I use in my executive program so they can ship kits where you just do a quick finger prick for their heart health and their metabolism one and many other tests that you can have in your own home.
I'm just looking right now. I think it's called directlabs.com. If you go to directlabs.com, they're based out of the US though.
Right.
Pretty much you can get almost all the testing. You may even be able to get the genetic testing now. So you can order direct from them. They're called Direct Labs.
Right.
If you go into their main page, directlabs.com, you can go through all. They do so many different panels. It's ridiculous. They have thousands of tests. You can just order directly on there if you're willing to pay for it. If you don't want to go through insurance, you just go there, order. I've used them before fantastically. So wasn't an issue again.
You got to draw blood, or you do a pinprick onto a
no. You got to go. You got to go into a local lab where you can get a blood. Into any of those. They give you a list of places you can go to in your area. Like at the time I was in Santa Monica, and I think we had like 4 options just in Santa Monica. So there's a lot of places you can get the blood draw done.
Okay.
You may have to pay a little extra in some places.
Right. Okay. So Direct Labs is one place to draw blood. Okay.
Well, they provide the place. They give you what they call a lab locator. So it's actually on the main page there. You can type in your zip code. This is mainly US. I think it's only US.
Got it.
So you enter your zip code and then they'll tell you the closest lab to get the blood draw for. At the time, there was quite a few in Santa Monica where I was. But you can go through and look at all the testing there. Specifically, just seeing if they had a genetic testing right now. I can't see any genetic testing right now. But it could be there. The cardiovascular, heart health, they have a whole series of panels there.
Right, on Direct Labs. So at least you can look there and have a look at which ones and then maybe check if they've got the same thing in your own country.
Yeah, well, Direct Labs, they've got look like maybe 100 and something different tests for cardiovascular health here in front of me right now.
Whoa. Oh, hey, the other big one is HSCRP for inflammation, right? High sensitive C-reactive protein.
CRP is a big factor for inflammation, but that comes back to the genetic profiling we were talking about before too, because it's a genetic type which
is causing inflammation.
Increases your response.
Right. So the inflammation would be caused because you're genetically predisposed and you are expressing that gene.
Yeah, so the IL-1 we talked about before, that was one of the ones. We can get into that. We should get into that next time. But that one means you're more prone to chronic inflammation,
Right, okay. All right, well, that's been awesome, Pete. Dr. Rouse, once again in the house, and we're digging down and trying to decrapinate, if you will, a lot of the confusion and bullshit that's out there, hopefully. But that's been great, Pete. Thank you very much once again for bringing us into your home and spending an hour with us to get people to understand and getting the confusion out, seeing perhaps where they can go, what they need to look for. And we've only looked at one way yet, which is through really supplementation. We haven't looked at all the other epigenetic factors outside of these 5 genes that you mentioned, nor gone deep on the others yet. And it'd be great to do that on the next episode.
Yep, sounds good.
If you're good. All right. Thanks, mate. Thanks again. And guys, remember, heal.me community. We've got like 500 strong in there right now. And we also have the exec.reset, which is invitation only. That is launching this week. And I said that last week, but I'm doing it this week, believe it or not, to launch that.
I'll post these tests up on heal.me as well on your Facebook.
Awesome. Yep. Awesome. That'd be great. And heal.me and look out for exec.reset. We've got a couple of execs being piloted on that right now, about to go for 3rd, and in fact a corporation as well, because Shea, PH360, have just launched Shea Wellness, their corporate offering as well. And there's a 30-day challenge that comes in that for an organization, which we can talk more about if you want to DM me. Aside from that, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Tomorrow we've got Anne Western Murphy. We're not looking in her drawers this week. We're going to be looking somewhere else. And so she's got some interesting stuff she's been doing this week on labeling. Maybe we'll get to have a bit of a discussion around that tomorrow as well, aside from some other things. But remember to enjoy life right here, or where Pete is in Queenstown, where it's starting to snow, by the sounds. There we go. Right now, when, Pete? When should people be enjoying life? Today! All right. Catch you in the next ones, guys. Thanks, Pete. See you in the next one.